We can just be addressing.
All right, the court is calling 2019 CR 12495 State versus Tamar Mcintyre. Could I have parties announced for the record for the state?
John Hunter, Jerry Goldstein, and Thomas Lane for Mr. McIntyre, Your Honor. We're ready to proceed.
And are you Mr. McIntyre?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so defense and everybody, please make sure you wear the microphones for the court reporter.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Yeah, may I ask if mine is working?
And Jenna,
Can I give a-
once I put these notes in the system, I'll hand you the documents. I'll let you find them up.
Hey, Thomas. Can you find me Kim Levine?
Oh, and Jenna, on that other case, the 90 days, he's to have credit for yesterday. Well, beginning yesterday. Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Dr. Kimberly Molina.
Yes, if you have a seat here, please. Good morning. Could you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand if you'll remember to keep your voice up so that the jurors can hear. And if you'll state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
I'm Dr. Kimberly Molina, Molina.
State, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Molina, can you please just, I guess, well, one, how long have you been a medical examiner?
I've been a medical examiner for approximately 22 years.
And hence the experience. So can we, you just please tell the jury about some of the training and education you had to go through and some of the training experience that you had to go through to become a medical examiner?
I attended, graduated from University of Texas at Austin, degree in mathematics. I graduated from University of Texas Health Science Center Medical School here in San Antonio. I completed my internship in family medicine at the University of Arkansas. I then returned to San Antonio to complete my training in anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology. And I'm board certified by the American Board of Pathology in anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology.
And as you said, you've been a medical examiner for 22 years. Has that been all in Bexar County, Texas, or has it been other places? And I'm going to go ahead and ask you why you came here today. Are you familiar with a case 2017-0941?
Yes,
And did you review the materials associated with that case number?
yes,
And reviewing those materials, is there an individual that an autopsy report was generated on for a Mark Anthony Salvador?
yes,
And was that performed on April 24th, 2017?
yes.
And can you just tell the jury in general what an autopsy entails?
Well, an autopsy performed by a medical examiner is performed to determine cause and manner of death. In essence, an autopsy is looking at a body, is assessing the circumstances of how the person came to be deceased. It's performing a post-mortem examination. That means looking at the outside of the body, looking at the inside of the body, the individual organs, performing laboratory testing or any other testing that's necessary, and taking that information to determine a cause and a manner of death.
Thank you. And was an autopsy performed on this Mark Anthony Salvador on that day?
Yes,
And after reviewing the materials associated with this case, did you come to the conclusion of the manner of the death of Mr. Salvador?
yes,
And what was that result or findings?
that he died as a result of a gunshot wound and it was a homicide.
Thank you. And I'm going to show you what's been marked state exhibit number 41 through 57. Ask you if you're familiar with this.
Yes, I am familiar with it. Thank you.
And are these photos from the medical examiner's office?
Yes,
And are they of Mark Anthony Salvador?
They're of the examination, yes.
Okay.
Not all of them are of.
Okay, I guess related to the autopsy and the materials with Mark Anthony Salvador.
Yes.
Thank you. Um, oh, state offer, state exhibit number 41 through 57. I have tendered to defense prior to Ms. Melina, Dr. Melina taking the stand, Your Honor, and I don't believe there's any objection.
No objection.
States exhibits numbers 41 through 57 is admitted without objection.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank
And Dr. Molina, if you need to step down because that screen isn't working to point out things, you're more than welcome to step down. And State, I think that light is shining in everyone's eye. All right.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put up state exhibit number 41. Can you describe to the jury what we see here?
Medical examiners are tasked by law in the state of Texas to investigate certain types of deaths. When a death falls under our jurisdiction, that means we take possession of the body. We have investigators who work for our office, so they're independent investigators who will go to a scene and document the scene, get information from the scene, and take possession of the body. When that happens, the body is placed into a transport pouch or a transport bag, and it is sealed at the scene so that the body can't be tampered with prior to it coming to our office, where we break the seal for our examination. I go into that explanation because the photo you're seeing here is the receipt of that body transport pouch, that body bag that contains the decedent. And you can see the yellow seal on that zipper, indicating it was sealed at the scene, stayed sealed until it arrived at our office.
And I see on this that it reads, it has some numbers listed on there. And this number seems to match very closely to the number I called out earlier. However, I called out 2017-0941. How does that number correlate with these numbers?
Yeah, so each case that is investigated by our office is assigned a unique case number. In this particular case, that unique number is 2017-0941. Our placards, as you can see, the black placard that's on the bag, as well as the listing of the bag. We tend to refer to cases by simply the last two numbers of the year, followed by the case number. As you can see, there's not enough room on our placard to put the full four number year. So we just use the last two numbers. So this would be 2017, case 0941.
Thank you. I'm going to show you what's marked state exhibit number 42. And can you please tell the jury what we're looking at here?
This is what we call the identification photograph. Every case, again, that comes through our office gets one of these. This again has that placard of 2017-0941 with a photograph of the decedent's face, so that we know that this decedent is the decedent that was autopsied, and that all of the case information from this case number, again 0941, is associated with this decedent.
Thank you. And on this particular picture, do you see any injuries on the deceased body?
Yes.
And where are those injuries located at?
So we can see some abrasions or scrapes just above the right eyebrow. Correct.
Okay.
We also see one just above the middle of the left eyebrow. Correct. We also see a contusion or a bruise on the upper lip on the right side towards the middle. And we also see some kind of scattered other abrasions on the cheeks and on the chin, what we describe as like punctate, small, kind of round.
Thank you. I want to show you what Smart State Exhibit number 43. And when Mr. Salvador came to the ME's office, did he come in this blue, I guess people call body bags?
Yes.
I guess the layman's terms. And then I see the person's in clothing. Is this how you receive them at the ME's office?
Yes, so again, our investigators take possession of the body at the scene exactly as is. So anything that the decedent's wearing, maybe there's a purse or a wallet, all of that is brought into our office, sealed into the body bag. We then open that bag, break that seal and open the bag at our office, and we take photographs documenting exactly how the body is received. So that's any clothing, the body hasn't been cleaned or manipulated in any way.
And I see that there's some bags on his hands. Why is that?
So at the scene, paper bags were placed over the hands by our investigator just to preserve any evidence that may be in or on the hands.
State Exhibit number 44, I believe, is sort of the same thing from 43, how he arrived at the ME's office. Is that correct, Dr. Molina?
Correct. We're just trying to show the whole body. So the first picture was the upper half, and this is the lower half, so we can see the whole body.
And I guess I do. I mean, is there any injuries that you can notate on this photo?
In this photo, we see an abrasion or a scratch on the left knee.
Right there, Dr. Molina?
Yes.
Thank you. State Exhibit number 45. Can you please tell the jury what you see here?
So once the body is received, we then disrobe the body so we can take a good look at the outer surfaces, and we'll clean the body to see, again, a good look at the outer surfaces. We're trying to find out why people died. So we're looking for signs of trauma, signs of natural disease. So this photograph is taken after the body's been disrobed and cleaned. So now we can see nicely those abrasions or scratches that we saw previously just above the right eyebrow. We can also see that contusion that we talked about, or bruise on the upper lip, that small abrasion, the small kind of punctate abrasions on the chin. And you see some small contusion or bruises of the nose as well.
Oh, sorry.
You can step down
This
if you
is
need to
part where-
step down.
I think but where are you going?
Right down.
Okay, thank you. I think the jury probably could see you from there, but just for the co-counsels right here.
Correct.
Okay. State Exhibit number 46.
So again, this is after cleaning, and we can see kind of better some of those injuries we talked about before. There's the abrasion above the left eyebrow, or the scratch. Right. And there is now we can see a larger abrasion or scratch of the left forehead at the hairline.
And
Correct.
in particular, is that a straight line, or what? How is that?
It's irregular.
Okay. I'll show you what sparked State Exhibit number 47. Let me bring this up there. Fuzzy for me.
So
Defense, if you need to move about the room to see what's being shown to the witness, you may do so.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. I'm fine.
I'll put it back on this because
I was Okay.
like, it was upside down. I had it upside down. I apologize. I'm going to show you what sparked State Exhibit number 47, which was upside down previously, but now is right side up. What are we looking at here?
So what we see here is we're looking at the left side of the neck. So if you can kind of see, there's a little bit of the ear
Mhm.
showing to one side. That's where the head is. And then the ruler that you see is over the shoulder for your orientation. And then along the left neck, what we're seeing here is we're seeing some kind of faint bruising or contusion above the ruler around the 14 centimeter, yeah, right in there. And then back below the ear, there's also another abrasion or scratch.
So I'm not sure. And now all of these injuries, I guess what I want to ask is, were these injuries healing, or, I mean, can you tell by the pictures if they were,
Objection 702, Your Honor. If that opinion is going to be elicited, I'd like to order the witness.
All right, that'll be overruled. You can answer the question. I'm sorry, ask your question.
um, well, you know what? I think it was a bad question anyway, so I'm going to move on. State exhibit number 48. What is this a picture of?
So this is a photograph of the left shoulder area, so the left upper arm right at the shoulder. And what we see here is a gunshot wound of entrance.
And state exhibit number 49.
This is a close-up of the wound after it's been cleaned, and you can see the defect and the kind of surrounding abrasion or scratch for where the projectile entered the body.
And this is an entrance wound or an exit wound?
This, I believe, is of the entry wound, but.
Okay.
Yes, that's the entry wound.
Okay. State exhibit number 50. What is that a picture of?
Sorry. This is a photograph of the right back. So you can see that the deceased has been kind of rolled up onto his side. And we see a defect in the right back. That is a gunshot exit wound.
And state exhibit number 51.
That is a close-up of or closer photograph of the exit wound.
And state exhibit number 52.
This is a photograph of the left forearm, and we can see some contusions or bruises of the left forearm, sort of above the identification band that you see.
And state exhibit number 53.
This is a photograph of the hand showing some abrasions or scratches and a contusion or bruise at the base of the thumb.
State exhibit number 54.
This is a photograph of the right elbow area showing some abrasions or scratches kind of on either side of the forearm at the elbow.
State exhibit number 55.
This is a photograph of the right forearm kind of wrist area showing another abrasion or scratch sort of right along the middle of the wrist.
And state exhibit number 56, which I believe you testified to earlier in another photo.
Correct. This is the abrasion or scratch of the left knee.
And then state exhibit number 57. What was this?
On the filter paper here, you can see kind of a very small yellow ring. This material was present on the body and collected at the time of the examination.
Thank you. Now, with the gunshot wound that you indicated on the photos, there was an entrance wound and an exit wound. Is that correct?
Correct.
If that bullet entered with at that entrance wound and exit out that exit wound, is there any possibility of vital organs being hit?
Yes.
Can you just describe to the jury what possible organs could be hit?
Well, from where the entry wound is in the left shoulder, where the exit wound is on the right back, the bullet would have to go through the chest, which would mean the possibility of hitting the lungs, so the left lung, the right lung, the heart, There's major vascular structures such as the aorta that course in that area, as well as the spine. So any or all of those could be hit by a bullet going through.
And in this particular case, were any of those organs hit?
Yes,
And your determination and findings is that this bullet or gunshot wound caused the death of Mr. Mark Anthony Salvador?
yes,
And do y'all do a toxicology of the victim's substance, I guess, possible substance in his system?
yes,
And in this particular case, did y'all perform that toxicology?
yes.
And was there any substance detected in this toxicology report?
No,
And which particular substances do y'all test for?
so we test for hundreds of different drugs and medications. We look for things like ethanol, which is drinking alcohol. We look for over-the-counter medications like Tylenol, aspirin, Benadryl. We look for prescription medications, antidepressants, blood pressure medicines. We look for illicit drugs, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. So it's a number of different screens that we use to look for all of these drugs. But again, it's hundreds. It's drugs that can cause death.
And you didn't, y'all, none of those substances were detected, is that correct?
Correct.
Do y'all test, well, let me ask you this. In the victim's mouth, there seemed to be a green substance. Is that indicated?
Yes.
And that, I would like to ask then, did y'all test for marijuana levels in his system?
No,
And why is that?
we do not routinely test for marijuana or its drugs in deceased and dead people. The reason being is we are unable to actually interpret what those results mean. When someone dies, if they've been exposed to marijuana for some time prior to death, and depending on the exposure, that can be up to a month prior to death, we can still find that marijuana. Therefore, if we test for it, we don't know what it means. I can't say it's in someone's blood when they die. I just know there was this exposure. So we do not routinely test for it.
Thank you. And I know that you stated earlier that there was an entrance and an exit wound. So this might be a dumb question, but I'd like to ask it. Was there any type of bullet or projectile found in the victim's body?
At the autopsy, no.
Thank you. We'll pass the witness at this time.
Defense?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Dr. Molina. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Just a few questions. When you received the body, obviously he had clothes on and there were items that had been bagged in the body bag with him, right? And if you don't recall, please refer to your report.
I mean, yes, he had clothes on that, I recall. I'm just seeing if anything was with him that had been bagged.
You found toothpaste and deodorant? Does
That
that
was in
sound
his
right?
pocket.
In his pockets?
Correct. It was in the pockets of the clothing.
Okay. And you also noted a smudgy gray material on his hands. Is that fingerprint dust or did you not know what that was?
It wasn't known at the time what that was, so a sample was taken.
Okay. Was there any results of that you know of or?
So we don't test for evidence. We collect evidence and submit it to the police, and then they can decide if they want it tested. So we sample it and we release it to the investigating law enforcement agency, and they can decide. But also to address your other question, I apologize, fingerprints wouldn't have been done till after the exam, so it wouldn't have been from us.
Okay, and it wouldn't have been fingerprint dust.
It should not have been.
Okay, understood. You indicated that because there was a clean entrance and exit wound that no fragments of the bullet were recovered, right?
Correct.
Was there any other foreign material in the wound or the path of the wound, like car glass or dirt or anything else that you all noted?
No.
Okay, that can sometimes happen, right? If someone shot in close proximity to a window and shot through the window, there might be particulates from the window in the wound, right?
That can happen, yes.
And you noted, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that there wasn't any tattooing or powder burn on the entrance wound?
Correct, that was noted.
Okay, so, help me understand this. Tattooing and powder burn occur if the gunshot occurs too close to the body, right?
Not
Yeah,
necessarily too close, but I
might be
think
the
you're
right-
saying.
Wrong word, yeah.
Right, so we look for powder tattooing, powder burns, kind of all of these soot. And it helps us to decide range of fire, how far away the firearm was when it was discharged. And those markings, those powder burns, will only occur at what we call close range, meaning the firearm has to be relatively close to the decedent when it's sustained. If you get outside of that range, we don't see those markings anymore.
So just to get a sense of what close range would be, you could still be fairly close to someone and not deposit soot or tattooing, but generally, in your mind, how many feet is close range?
So assuming a generic handgun, close range is usually about 2 to 3 feet. So if the muzzle of the firearm is more than 2 to 3 feet away, we don't typically see those markings.
Understood. You identified several contusions and scrapes on the body that weren't associated with the gunshot wound, right?
Correct.
But you're not able to say how those contusions and scrapes got there.
Correct.
They could have been something that occurred relatively, well, I mean, they could have happened that same day, but earlier in the day. It could have happened at the time of death. They could have happened right after the time of death. And it would probably have manifested the same way or roughly thereabout.
Correct.
Okay. You talked about toxicology, and I wanted to get a better understanding of this. You said that you all test for hundreds of different substances, some legal, some illegal, all across the board, right?
Correct.
And then there's a toxicology report that's delivered to you that you use in making your ultimate findings about this, right?
Correct.
And so in that report, you note that nothing was detected among cocaine, opiates as a class, benzodiazepines as a class, fentanyl, oxycodone, and oxymorphone, right?
As some of the tests listed, yes.
Okay, so you're saying that this report is incomplete?
No, I'm just saying there's three other tests that
Oh,
will run.
I'm so sorry. That's right. Alkaline alcohols and acid neutral.
Correct.
Okay. What's alkaline?
So alkaline drug screens for hundreds of different drugs. These are drugs that are alkaline at their usual pH. So basically, it's a property of the drug that tells us on which screen it would show up.
Okay. So it's a very big fishing net, basically.
Yes.
Okay. And if you got some kind of a hit on that screen, it would be a good prompt to do additional toxicology work to see which of those many alkaline chemicals it could be, right?
So actually, our alkaline screens or our screening tests will actually tell us what drug it is. These tests are done on instrumentation that's based on the properties of the drug, right? So it depends on how large the drug is and how volatile the drug is, how it responds at different temperatures, right? So on this screen, for instance, for example, on an alkaline screen, the screen might say there's methamphetamine present. But yes, in our line of work, if a screen shows that methamphetamine is present, we will then do another test, we call it a confirmatory test, to confirm that, yes, indeed, this is methamphetamine. And we will quantitate it, meaning how much of it is there. But if nothing's on our screen, there's nothing to confirm.
Are synthetic cannabinoids going to fall under the general classification of an alkali?
No,
What about PCP?
yes,
Okay, so You don't test for cannabis. You testified to that earlier, marijuana.
Correct.
Okay. And you explained the reason for that is that marijuana can linger in a person's system for a very long time period after they smoke.
Potentially, yes.
And so, I mean, from the true scientific inquiry as to how a person died, knowing that they may have smoked marijuana sometime in the past 30, 45, 60 days probably doesn't help you make a determination. So that's a waste of time.
It doesn't help us make a determination, so we don't use it.
But it could be circumstantially relevant. I mean, especially in a homicide case, the fact that someone might be intoxicated acutely on anything might be significant, even if that intoxicant wouldn't have made them sick or caused an organ to fail or otherwise killed them, right?
So intoxication can be important, but I think what you're referring to is actually impairment. And we can't testify to that. So I can only tell you when things are present. And it would be unfair for me to tell you that marijuana is present at the time someone died when I don't know. I just know they've been exposed to it. However, yes, if it's helpful to an investigation, we are able to order it if requested.
Was it ever requested of you?
Not that's indicated and it wasn't ordered.
Okay. And so basically, if someone was acutely impaired by intoxication on something that wasn't screened, that's just something we can't know one way or the other.
We actually can't ever testify to impairments when someone is dead. Impairment is a clinical diagnosis. So the only thing I would ever be able to testify to anyway would be hypothetically, again, let's take our methamphetamine, that methamphetamine is present. What it's doing to that individual, to that body, any impairment it may be causing, I cannot testify to when the patient is dead. So really, I can only tell you if something is there or not, which is again, why we don't test for marijuana, because I can't even tell you if it's there or not if I do the test.
Well, but okay, so we know, like, for example, in an alcohol case, 0.08 is a legal limit in Texas for alcohol, right? If you're aware.
Yes, so in Texas, there is a legal impairment limit.
Right. And there's been significant medical research on what certain blood alcohol levels correlate to in terms of expected signs of impairment, right?
Correct.
So while you wouldn't be able to say that a person with a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit was necessarily impaired, they could be a chronic alcoholic and they present, you would be generally able to say that that's a very high level, and that studies have shown that that does often impair cognitive functioning, right?
Judge, I'm just gonna object to relevance.
What is the relevancy?
Well, Your Honor, the relevance would be, may I proffer the relevance at the bench?
Sure.
So, Dr. Molina, you would agree that from a investigative standpoint, it would be important for police to know, if they could, whether it is possible that someone is impaired, even if you can't scientifically say that they were impaired, right?
Objection, speculation.
If you know.
Do you know the answer? I mean, if you know about police investigation.
I know about impairments versus intoxication, and I know what our toxicology means. So understanding effects of certain drugs that are present, yes, that can be helpful, but we also have to know whether or not they're present.
Well, okay. So let's talk about what you mentioned earlier. You did not test for synthetic cannabinoids.
Correct.
You are aware that sometimes synthetic cannabinoids are sprayed onto material that looks like marijuana or sprayed onto marijuana itself, right? As a common form of ingestion.
So yes, I am aware, usually it's not ingestion, but yes, I am aware that is a route. Usually it's smoked.
Usually smoked. I apologize. So that's a potential look-alike to a marijuana sample.
Somewhat, yes, they are actually slightly different in how, but somewhat, yes.
Okay. And that was not tested for.
Correct.
And you are aware of the pharmacology of some of the synthetic cannabinoids that are commonly traded on the street, some of which are legal, some of which are illegal, right?
Yes,
And that pharmacology can include behavioral changes to a person, correct?
correct.
And that would be relevant to know in a homicide investigation.
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. They weren't tested for.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Did you do the gunshot residue testing? Or I guess the better way of asking that, because I don't think you did. I withdraw that remark. I'm sorry. So when you received the body, there were bags on the hands, correct?
Correct.
And swabbing had already been done prior to its arrival at the medical examiner's office, correct?
I will need to review the report.
That would be fine.
Yes, if you're talking about GSR swabs.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So your office doesn't have anything to do with the GSR aspect of that afterwards. The reason the hands are bagged has nothing to do with the GSR, correct?
correct.
That you bag the hands to determine to prevent other evidence that might be on the hands unrelated to GSR from falling off during transport so that you can examine it, right?
Yes, with the caveat that there are some gunshot residues that are of interest to us. And those aren't the ones necessarily you're swabbing for. That's usually done for different reasons. But sometimes, depending on how firearms are held or how they're discharged, marks can be left on the hands, and we're protecting those. Similar to the discussion we had about those powder burns that can be on a wound, marks can be left on the hands as well. But that would be something we would see and we would note at autopsy versus the chemical testing of GSR testing that's done.
Okay, understood. But also relevant on a hand in a homicide investigation would be to look and see if, for example, if there are fingernail scrapings, like if somebody else's skin is underneath their fingernails.
Well, correct. We would take fingernail samples. It's not something we would see, but we can take fingernail samples if there was an altercation. Maybe there's hair or fibers on the hands, things you don't want to have lost or dislodged during transport.
And you'd want to know that because it might help you see whether or not there's been a struggle.
So that would be part of evidence collection. So, finding a hair in someone's hand might not affect our investigation, but law enforcement may be interested in that. So we collect it for law enforcement.
So that's a parallel function that you have. I mean, your primary function is to determine how did this man die, but you know that because it's a homicide investigation that brought this body to you, that you have a responsibility to make sure that you're not destroying evidence, that you're preserving the things that might become relevant for law enforcement. That's something that you have to look out for, right?
Correct.
I'll pass the witness.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused?
Yes, by the state, Your Honor.
May I confer with counsel for a moment? Your Honor?
Sure.
I'm sorry. We'll pass the witness.
All right, is the witness
Thank you.
excused?
Can we have her subject to recall, please?
All right, could parties approach? All right, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to this witness, she may end up being recalled, but both parties have agreed that if she were to be recalled by either party, that she would be allowed to appear by video as opposed to in person. All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone during the pendency of this trial. You may step down. I'm sorry, were the exhibits left?
Let me double check that. Well,
think
yes,
they might
the
be
photos, they're
all
right
the
here.
ammo. Okay.
They're right here, sorry.
Thinking the same thing. All right, state, call your next witness.
The state calls Officer Brandon Albert.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that members of the jury can hear. And if you'll state your name and spell your last name, please.
Brandon Halbert, Halbert.
All right, state, you may proceed.
Thank you. Officer Halbert, are you a certified peace officer in the state of Texas? And how are you currently employed?
San Antonio Police Department,
How long have you been with the San Antonio Police
just
Department?
over 18 years.
18 years?
Yes.
And what is your current title and assignment with the San Antonio Police Department?
Patrol with North Patrol, daylight,
All right, and what hours does daylight run?
06 to 1400.
Can you just briefly describe the training that you had to undergo to become a law enforcement officer with SAPD?
One of the laws, procedures, some evidence collection, but we're not, obviously evidence techs.
Okay. And you attended the SAPD Academy, is that correct?
Yes.
And were you employed as a police officer with SAPD on April 28th of 2017? Do you recall what shift you were working?
Daily.
And would you have had the same title and assignment back then as you do today?
Yes,
Okay. And on that day, were you in uniform?
yes,
Were you in a marked patrol vehicle? And were you on patrol on that day?
yes, ma'am.
Do you recall being dispatched to 7243 San Pedro Avenue, San Antonio, Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what type of location that was?
That's a Mexican food restaurant.
All right. Is that located in Bear County, Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall why you were dispatched to that location?
Either abandoned vehicle or suspicious vehicle.
Okay. And do you recall, is there a case number associated with that call?
There was one, yes.
Do you recall that?
I don't recall offhand, no.
Did you write a report on?
A supplemental report, yes.
All right. Showing you it's been marked for identification purposes only as State's Exhibit number 58. Do you recognize that document? Okay, and is that a copy of your report that you generated at or near the time of the date that you were dispatched?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you take a look at the front page, that right there, does that contain your name
Yes, ma'am.
and your badge number?
Yes, ma'am.
And would that help you refresh your memory?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you would just, if you need to refresh your memory, just look at it, please don't. Forget. And can you please tell us the activity case number associated with the call?
SAPD 17089350.
All right, thank you. And upon arrival at the scene, did you make contact with any witnesses?
Witnesses, no, made contact with the owner of the restaurant.
All right, and do you recall their names?
Prisciliano Lopez is what I have on the supplement.
All right, and is there a second person that you made contact with? You want to look on page 3 of your report?
Sarah Lopez.
All right, thank you. And eventually, did you end up in the parking lot of that Mexican restaurant?
Yes.
Okay. Did you notice a vehicle or what did that look like when you went
The
up there?
vehicle was pointed out to me on the initial dispatch. It actually gave the license plate number for the vehicle. That was in question. And on the way over there, I ran the license plate, which actually came up with a bolo for the vehicle with a matching description.
Okay, and just so the jury's aware, what is a bolo?
Be on the lookout.
Okay, and when you, do you recall what type of car it was?
I don't all know.
Okay. Do you remember if there was any damage on the car?
The windshield.
Okay. And once you were on scene, what did you do?
I called up the detective once I verified the vehicle. That was the vehicle that was in question as far as the bolo was concerned. Contacted the detective. Detective Juarez for homicide and gave him a heads up as far as the look that we found the vehicle, that we got the vehicle that was in question as far as that bolo was concerned.
Okay. Regarding the owners of the, were you looking for any other type of evidence?
Possible video as far as location goes.
Okay, and when you met with the owners, were you able to observe any relevant video to the offense? Okay. Did you observe any other possible items of evidence that you thought may be pertinent to the investigation?
Possible, yes. There's behind the car, I believe it was on the roadway or in the parking lot behind the car. There's a SD drive. Oh, I think a 4 megabyte drive or 4 gigabyte drive that was there.
Okay, and did you take custody of that?
I did, yes.
Okay, and did you contact a crime scene investigator to come make the scene to process it? All right, and did you give her that SD card?
Yes.
Did you go back later on and try to look for other surveillance videos in the area?
The next day I did, yes.
Okay, and did you find any?
I did not.
All right. showing you what has been marked as states exhibits number 59, 60, and 61. Do you recognize these?
Yes,
All right, and what are they?
they're CD-ROM or DVDs.
Okay, and have you watched the contents of the DVDs?
Yes.
And what do the DVDs contain?
Some of my body cam, or most of my body camera footage as far as my coming up to the scene, making contact with the detective, and then going inside the restaurant, actually watching some of the footage.
All right, and does states exhibits 59, 60, and 61 contain any identifying marks by you?
Yes,
What are those?
my first and last initial and my badge number.
And is that how you are able to confirm that it's the same thing that you've previously viewed?
Yes.
All right, and can you kind of help us or help us understand why it's broken out onto 3 CDs? Did you start and stop it?
One, yeah, start and stop, and then the one of them's for the very next day for whenever I go back.
All right, and are these a fair and accurate depiction of the events as they occurred on the offense date?
Yes,
And besides to comply with legal rules, have they been altered in any way?
not to my knowledge.
And tendering to defense, but at this time the state offers states exhibits 59 through 61 and inclusive.
May I vote the witness, John?
Yes.
Good morning, officer. How are you?
Good, how are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. Which of these 59, 60, and 61 is the footage of you in the restaurant looking at the surveillance footage?
I believe 50. I'm sorry, 59.
59, okay. And does that footage depict the surveillance? In other words, is it your body worn camera recording a computer screen showing the surveillance footage?
Yes.
Okay. When you made contact with the restaurant owner about this situation, you had a discussion with that owner about what you thought might be relevant footage?
I believe so, yes.
Was it you or was it someone else that had the conversation about it?
I can't recall.
Probably, well, let me ask you this way. You were not previously assigned to this investigation in any way, correct? Did you know anything about why there was a bolo or be on the lookout for that vehicle?
When the BOLO comes up, it gives a case number. So I've looked up the case for that date and time, so it's only about 5 days prior to, so I looked up what was going on. I jogged my memory of what was going on, because I watched it on, or I saw some of it on TV. And I knew some of the officers that were out there that day. So I had an idea of what had happened, but I knew nothing about the case.
And you mentioned that you had called an evidence technician out to help you process that SD card, correct?
Not just the SD card, mainly the card itself. It was mainly for the car, but I gave her a heads up that I found the SD card. And I, even in the body cam footage, I say, I don't know if it has anything to do with this case or not, but I found this outside the car. And I gave it to her.
Who else viewed the Mexican restaurant's surveillance footage with you besides the proprietor?
There was another detective with the, I think our IT department that came out there and actually came out and actually got the video footage from themselves.
So they collected that?
Yes,
Okay. And you don't know anything about the way that that Mexican food restaurant curates its surveillance footage, like whether it's kept, whether it's real-time recording, whether it overwrites certain things, whether it's motion activated, you don't know any of that.
I couldn't recall, no, sir.
Okay, so while you can attest to what is a fair and accurate depiction of what your body worn camera
Yes,
documented, you can't say whether it's a fair and accurate depiction of the parking lot that you're watching on the screen, right?
from where the parking lot was, as far as the footage goes and what the adjoining property line, I could tell that that was where it was in the parking lot.
But as far as whether it's truly and accurately recording every second of what's going on in that parking lot, whether anything had been done to the footage before you got there, you can't speak to that.
I cannot know.
That would be our objection to what the officer has identified as 59, and I'd ask the state to confirm that that is the one that shows the body worn camera showing the surveillance footage. I don't have objections to the remainder of his body worn camera. So from what the officer has just attested to, my objection would be specifically to 59, if state could confirm that.
I'll have to do that on a break. So at this time, I pass the witness and we'll deal with that later.
I have no
Any
questions.
response to the objections or no response?
Well, Judge, I mean, it's a fair and accurate depiction of what he personally observed on the scene. And so, I mean, he's testified that he's reviewed it. It's what he watched at the scene, and it's a fair and accurate depiction of that. And so we would be
Right, so,
offering it for that.
Well, once both of you have had a chance to review 59, then the court will make its ruling. Any further questions for this witness?
No questions of this one.
Is he excused or subject to recall? All
Excused by the state.
Excused.
right, just make sure you remove the microphone. All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone while this trial is proceeding. You may be excused. Thank you. State, call your next witness.
The state calls Sarah Lopez.
Good morning. Could you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that members of the jurors can hear, and if you need to adjust the microphone down, you can.
Okay.
All right, could you state your name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Sarah Pacheco. Pacheco, Pacheco.
Good morning, Ms. Pacheco. How old are you currently? Okay, and do you currently live in San Antonio, Texas?
Yes, I do.
And about how long have you lived in San Antonio?
About 28 years.
Okay. And are you in the restaurant business? Is that correct?
Correct.
And back in 2017, what was your last name?
Lopez.
Okay. Now I want to turn your attention to April 28th of 2017. At that time, were you an owner of El Potosino Mexican restaurant?
Correct.
Okay. And who were you co-owners with?
My ex-husband, Prisciliano Lopez.
Okay. And is that restaurant El Potosino located at 7243 San Pedro Avenue, San Antonio, Texas?
That is correct.
And did you and your husband notice a vehicle that had been at the
I'm going to
location?
object to leading, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer the question. How do you and your husband notice the vehicle that had been at the location?
My ex-husband noticed it at the time.
Okay. And was a call made to 911?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes.
All right. And did an officer with the San Antonio Police Department arrive on scene and speak with you?
Correct.
All right. And at the time, was your restaurant equipped with security cameras?
Yes, it was.
And were those digital cameras?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall where they were located at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. And when the SAPD made the scene, you were able to log into your security camera footage and pull up. Were you able to log into the system?
Yes.
Okay. And did you look for video?
Yes.
Okay. And did you find any relevant video that the officer asked you to preserve?
Yes.
Now, I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 62. I'm going to pull it out of the white envelope. Do you recognize what this is? The CD?
Is the video?
Okay. And so this CD, State's Exhibit number 62, contains video on it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And have you made any markings on this exhibit?
Yes, it's my initials.
Okay. And is that you've reviewed what's on this CD, correct?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and you're able to confirm that what's on the CD is the same thing that you viewed because you signed it when you watched it?
Correct.
Okay, and what's contained on State's Exhibit number 62, is that the same video footage that you provided to the San Antonio Police Department?
Yes,
Okay, and was the video that's contained on State's Exhibit number 62, was it prepared on a device that is capable of making accurate visual recording?
Objection leading, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Okay, and in your experience with the system that you had, the security camera system at the time, did you find it to be reliable and accurately depict your location?
yes,
Okay, and has this video been altered in any way?
no,
Okay, and on the date that you know, extracted this video, were you competent to operate the system?
yes,
Okay, and you've reviewed the contents of State's Exhibit 62, is that correct?
yes,
And it's a good visual representation of the location at the time?
yes.
Okay. I'm tendering to defense for inspection at this time. State offers State's Exhibit number 62.
May I go down to the witness?
Yes.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning, I'm good, thank you.
So this is the surveillance footage from what the police asked you to prepare for this case, is that right?
Correct.
And can you tell me a little bit more about the surveillance system that you use?
I don't know what you want me to say about that.
Did you install that system
No.
yourself?
No,
Who installed it?
I don't recall at the moment who installed it, but it was a company that came and installed the system.
Do you maintain the evidence? And I don't mean like the footage that it collects. I mean, how do you store that information?
It just whatever it stores on the hard drive. But we don't keep records of it. It's whatever time it stores it. That's it.
Okay, so does it overwrite itself at some point?
I don't understand, what do you mean by overwrite?
I mean, did it somewhere on a hard drive that you own or owned, would every day that camera was running be available to look at it?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. In terms of finding this specific chunk of footage, what did you use to find this piece of footage?
I use the mouse to go into the system and look for the date and the hour.
Okay, so you were able to search it just by date and hour? Okay. No objections.
All right, State's Exhibit number 62 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
Granted.
Okay, Ms. Pacheco, and so there was a couple of three different camera views that you provided, is that correct? Okay. And so. For the record, I am playing a vantage point from camera 12. We pass the witness, Your Honor.
No question.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excused by the state.
Excused.
All right, the rule has been invoked. That means you're not allowed to discuss your testimony or view anything about this trial. Do you understand? All right, if you'll remove the microphone and you may step down. State, call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the state calls Kadisha Ross.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that members of the jury can hear. And if you'll state your name for the record and spell your last name, please.
My name is Kadisha Ross, Kadeisha.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Kadisha Ross. Well, actually, do you go by K?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can you please just introduce yourself to the jury and tell them what occupation and organization you work for?
Good morning, my name is Kay, or Kadisha Ross. I work for the Regional Organized Crime Information Center, also known as ROCIC. We are one of 6 regional information shared system centers located in Nashville, Tennessee. We offer or provide investigative services to our law enforcement agencies as well as secure information sharing.
And Your Honor, I think for the purposes of this, under Rule 705, 702, 703, I'd request a Delbert Kelly hearing outside the presence.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard some evidence in this case. You're not allowed to discuss anything that you've heard. You're not allowed to internalize or start deliberating. You're not to do any investigation. Everything that you need to know about this case has come from inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand? All right, so I'm going to give you a break and the deputy will bring you back in after this hearing. All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors. All right, everyone, please be seated.
Your Honor, I would call the court and civil counsel's attention to a case, Bexar versus State. We're gonna have the cite to it, Your Honor. It's a Court of Criminal Appeals case. And the court held that it was the name organized crime. We would object to that and have the court instruct the jury not to go in, not to consider that factor, the title organized crime. And you'll see, I'll get you the cite to it. Court of Criminal Appeals reversed that case where the prosecutor's office had a sign that said organized crime unit. It does imply, I would suggest to the court, a sinister aspect that has nothing to do with this nice witness or what she does, which we're happy she's doing it. It's just that it implies to the jury that there's some belief that this individual is involved in organized crime.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess pursuant to that, I would ask if the state could please have the witness proffer the basis of her opinion and the underlying facts and data of it, and then
I don't know what her opinion is. I don't even know if this is if she's being offered as an expert witness or not.
That's my impression, Your Honor, is that they're gonna be offering her. this
Yes,
organized
Judge,
crime.
she is a individual that clarified the video and had analyzed the video to be better viewed by the trier of fact.
All right, and so
Oh, I
when you,
see.
when
This
you
is
speak,
Purely that video enhancement. Okay, well, I wanted Dr. Kelly hearing about that too, so that's good. That's great.
so is this specifically her expertise is enhancing videos?
Clarifying, yes, Your Honor.
All right. And when we speak of enhancing videos, is it States Exhibit 62?
This
Or is
is
it another video?
It would be 62 and
40.
40, Your Honor.
All right,
Could we,
all right.
I guess,
I will hear let's have the hearing.
right.
Your Honor, may I have the record reflect so counsel and the court will have the case available. We'll get it for it. Dexter versus State is 544 Southwest Second, page 426, Texas Criminal Appeals, Court of Criminal Appeals, 1976.
All right, thank you, counsel.
Thank you.
All right, so y'all may ask your questions.
You could just proffer where her testimony is. And,
Oh, there testimony. One, Your Honor, she has analyzed the videos and if I'm just gonna proffer.
Yeah,
this point, okay, yeah.
if we could proffer to the witness. then-
Oh, okay, okay. Would you like to do it that way?
Please.
Uh, well, Ms. Ross, can you, your previous educational background, what's your educational background?
Sure, I have a criminal justice administration degree from Middle Tennessee State, bachelor's, and also a psychology minor.
And then also, do you have any on the job training?
I do. I've been conducting forensic video analysis for about 2 years.
And do you have any specialized training?
Yes, I am a certified forensic video technician under LEVA, which stands for the Law Enforcement and Video and Emergency Services Video Association International Incorporated.
And do you have any professional experience in analyzing videos and that of that nature?
Well, yes, in addition to just on-the-job training, as well as certification, I've undergone about 124 specific hours of video training certification.
And what about training that relates exactly to your position?
Yes, that is pertaining to LEVA, those certifications again, so 176 hours of audio and video training, specifically 124 hours of certified video training, as well as about 2 years of conducting forensic imaging cases.
And just if you know, how many possible like actual cases have you worked on?
In total, 260 as it relates to video.
And in this particular case, were you sent videos to analyze?
Was I sent videos analyzed?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sergeant Rodriguez was able to upload through our secure network RIS files.
Mhm.
He was able to provide that media to us.
And did you successfully complete the analyst of these videos that were sent to you?
Yes, enhancements were done relating to specific requests by Sergeant Rodriguez on our RLC IC form.
And in this particular field of work, is the way you analyze, enhance these videos, is the accepted practice of how you perform that?
Yes, there is a recognition in the scientific community for forensic video analysis.
And did you use certain equipment to perform this enhancement?
Yes, so enhancements were conducted using AMP5, which is a forensically sound and scientifically based forensic software used for processing or clarifying video and images.
And is this equipment that you use accepted use in the scientific community?
Yes.
And do you represent yourself to be an expert in the field of, I guess, enhancement of these videos? What is your title as in enhancing videos?
Under LEVA, I am certified, to conduct forensic video analysis.
At this time, Your Honor, we'll pass the witness for the purpose of this hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Okay.
Couple of questions. You gave an acronym of an accrediting organization that you are certified under. Could you please give me that full accrediting organization's name again?
Yeah, so it's LEVA, it's the Law Enforcement and Emergency Services Video Association International Incorporated.
So incorporated, so it's a private entity, it's not a governmental entity. Is that correct?
Honestly, I'm sure.
Okay. Do you know if it in and of itself has any collaboration with other organizations in the same field that engage in peer review and cross-analysis with what it does? Or is it a standalone entity that has no additional oversight?
To my knowledge, they are standalone. They are recognized as the global standard for forensic, for the science of forensic image and processing. They train and provide certification.
When you say that they are recognized as the global standard, is that something that the incorporated entity has represented, or is that something that has been independently accredited from another crime laboratory or another law enforcement entity that you are aware of?
They recognize themselves as a global standard. It's on their website.
I understand. Now, you said that what you did in this case was enhancements of a video. And I want to get a little bit more precise about that. When you say that you enhanced the footage, what specific process, digital, mechanical, or otherwise, did you put upon the videos you were provided in this case?
Sure. So if I'm understanding your question, so the process or the purpose of image enhancement is to reveal pre-existing image information from the file in order to provide a more fair and accurate representation of the image content.
Okay, so when you say pre-existing image information, when we're talking about a digital photograph, we're talking about a series of pixels on a computer screen, right? And so, you know, the pixels will be a color of some kind. You know,
Luminance and color, yes, sir.
okay. And so when you say luminance, you're talking about how bright the pixel is,
Yes.
and then what color that pixel is, correct?
Yeah.
So if the camera captures an image in that pixel, a certain amount of light has reacted with the sensor of that camera, and that camera has discerned that wavelength of that light to be at a certain color, right?
Correct.
And that's sort of a fixed thing about the world, that light refracts off a certain object or a certain person at a particular wavelength, and it gives off a certain amount of brightness, and that's just how light works, right?
I would agree.
And we can't change that later. You agree with that too?
We can, through enhancements, to clarify things that are not
Well, let's be,
revealed at the scene, yes.
let's be a little bit more precise then.
Sure.
So you don't dispute that the light is bouncing off of the subject in the photograph at a fixed wavelength. I mean, that because of the way physics operates, that's going to be how the photon reacts when it strikes the object and bounces back, no matter what you do with the camera or a computer later, right?
Correct, depending on that specific device, the quality of it, sure.
And I mean, okay, but you'd agree with me that the sensor on a camera cell or a piece of 35mm film can't register a photon of light that wasn't there, right?
Can you clarify?
I mean, light either bounced off of something and came back to the eye of the camera or it didn't,
The
right?
camera is generally a light receiving device, yes.
So while you could do things to the image after the fact, you can't change how the camera actually perceived the object when it was the subject of the photograph, when the exposure was made, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So when you say that you're going back in and enhancing it, I'm trying to understand what exactly you are doing to the pixel, both in terms of its luminescence and in terms of its color. Specifically, like what are you altering about the image when you make the enhancement?
The image content stays the same. I'm not taking away, I'm not adding in any new information. The enhancement process is through already pre-existing information that wasn't clear to the human eye. These cameras at the scene are only capturing what is of quality to that specific device. Videos are volatile and changing information. So you have an encoding and a decoding process. That light is transformed or converted into electronic signals. And it's stored and processed until it's ready to be played back.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the way a computer is processing the information that is received by the exposure is being converted to whatever code the computer uses, to the language of the computer, right?
Yes,
And that's how later you can tell the computer to show you the image again. It has all of the code for what that exposure represents, and it can reproduce the pixels at a later time, correct?
correct.
Okay. And so what you're saying is that because videos are dynamic and those pixels are changing a lot and there's a lot of code, that sometimes the way the computer writes in language, the visual information that the camera sensor received may be confusing to the human eye, and that you need to sometimes fix that?
Confusing or not specifically revealing to the human eye, not exposed to exactly what the camera sees and what the human eye has seen once all that information is encoded and transcoded and later processed. Yes, there can be issues with that playback as far as the container, the codec, the frame rate, compression, noise. All of those are factors in the way how the human eye perceives video.
And at its core, those are basically aesthetic judgments. I mean, they're about whether or not you, as the perceiver of the image, feel that the image is sufficiently clear, right?
Yes,
And so it comes down to a matter of your interpretation as to how much clarity, how much sharpness, how much contrast, how much shadow removal, how much brightness enhancement you believe the image needs in order to be quote unquote more clear, right?
it's not necessarily based on what I believe. I go by the histogram that basically discerns or lays out in a graphical format how those pixels are distributed. So it's not in a way, my enhancements aren't to make the video look better or, look a certain way. I am enhancing based off this histogram and the way those pixels must be distributed
Do you
prior
have,
to and after.
do you have any experience with analog camera equipment, just for point of reference?
Not fully, no, sir, but I'm familiar.
Okay, and so, I mean, obviously, even with digital equipment, you're familiar with like red filters, green filters, yellow filters, and how those can affect the image and affect how the colors register on the final exposure. You familiar with that,
Yes.
that concept? And histograms are sort of a digital photographer's tool to essentially apply the same concept, to be able to see how much of this light is coming in through the red spectrum, the green spectrum, the yellow spectrum, so that adjustments could be made to the color, right?
Yes,
And photographers do make those adjustments based upon aesthetic judgment about how to make the subject of the image pop, stand out more from the background, to be more clear, those kinds of things, right?
there is a forensic line between Photoshop and making something aesthetically pleasing and conducting a forensic video analysis in order to restore and enhance an image.
Yes, ma'am.
But we both refer to a histogram. It is helpful in the process.
Thank you so much. That's exactly where I want to talk about. Let's talk about, as you say, the forensic line between the aesthetics of the image or its ease of understanding by the observer versus what is going on. What standards do you rely upon when adjusting the histogram of an image?
Well, a histogram is made up of midtones, highlights, and lowlights. So a histogram, if it's going to the far right, there's a lot of exposure or clipping or brightness in that image. If it's to the far left, it's basically dark and a lot of contrast. It's hard to be able to see that image. There is no perfect histogram. However, you want it to be as round towards the middle as possible.
Okay, but what I'm saying is the histogram of an image is the histogram in terms of light. When the exposure is made, whether it's a computerized cell or whether it's analog film, when the exposure is made, there is a certain amount of light let into the aperture, and that's going to register on a histogram as demonstrating that some amount of the light falls into this category, some amount of the light falls into that category, et cetera, right?
Correct.
And so that is the way that the camera captured it. And you're then analyzing a graph showing the percentages of where that light fell when the camera captured it, correct?
Yes.
So when you say you want it to be more in the middle, you know, the photographer, if he's tasked with making sure that it's a good quality image from the get-go, would want to light meter the subject, right? And make sure that he's corrected for his aperture and exposure so that the histogram does come into the middle, right? That's the sign of a really good photographer that knows how to make that histogram look as you described, correct?
Sure.
But if the camera didn't do that, then the camera didn't do that. It's overexposed, it's underexposed, the light's over on one side or the other, right?
Sure.
So when you talk about wanting it to be in the center, we're talking about now instructing the computer to change the values that it will ascribe to those pixels so that different colors and different luminances will appear on your computer screen than what was originally captured, right?
You are more so, you're not, could you clarify? I'm sorry.
So you look at an image. Let's say we have an image that's horribly underexposed, right? You know, like just way too dark.
Okay.
And you look at that histogram and what all of it would be on the left for an overexposed.
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, an
Under.
underexposed. So everything's way over on the left, and you look at the image and you go, I can't see anything in this. It looks almost like a totally black screen. This is a bad image. This is, cameraman shouldn't have taken this picture. And now you have to do something to the pixels, luminescence into their color in order to try and correct it, right?
There's limitations, sure. It depends on how overexposed or underexposed that image is. We don't receive or enhance every image or video that we come across.
Sure. I mean, if you close the aperture of a camera completely and no light got in, you would not be able to overexpose that image, right?
Right.
Okay. So understanding that there are physical limitations, what instructions have you received? What are the protocols that your accrediting organization recommends that guide you as to where the line is between naturally adjusting a histogram on an image to slightly improve its contrast or its brightness or its white balance versus manipulating it too far? Like, do you have written protocols that instruct us on this?
There is a forensic image processing framework that we follow in order to restore and enhance video or images. It's a case-by-case basis. Each, as you know, each video image is different. But there is a framework, yes, that we do follow in order to first restore, figure out what is wrong with that video or image, restore as it relates to aspect ratio, for example, distortions. And then from there, we go into the enhancement process.
All right, so let's just start from that concept. How does your training tell you to identify when an image is wrong? What makes an image wrong?
So frame rate, for example, distortions, lens, there could be a wide angle lens, a barrel lens, so depending on that camera's lens is where that distortion may play a part.
Well, what if the photographer wanted it to have those distortions? Or what if the photographer intended that lens for a particular effect?
Sure, so for example, that's where you have proprietary video, where they, make up or program their systems to operate a certain way.
Okay,
So for example, I don't know if we can relate this to the case, but that 360, fisheye lens, that was unrolled and flipped horizontally and vertically because that specific manufacturer wanted a 360 scene of that camera.
okay, so that's what I want to know about, right? The lens is a fisheye. And so then to adjust or enhance that fisheye lens in some way, are you saying that you would be using the proprietor's technology to be able to do that?
It was the source of the video, so only clarifying what was provided to me. So yes, that video came as a 360 fisheye camera.
I understand. What I guess I'm getting at is, what are the methods that you would use to address problems like distortions or other problems with a fisheye camera?
As it relates to,
Well, I guess my problem is, it sounds like all of this is an aesthetic judgment, because what I still don't understand from you. Okay, let's back up. You get an image. The image is what the image is, right? Flaws and all, it's the image, correct?
Right.
And then they hand it to you. What criteria do you use to determine that that image needs to be changed?
we follow the forensic image processing framework.
Well, tell me about that
Sure,
framework.
so the forensic image processing framework, includes file preparation, when we first receive the request. This goes into contacting the officer, getting, the nature of the request, specific timestamps, things like that, introductions. From there, we do a analysis.
Let me pause you right there, because I think that one might be the most important thing. The process starts because someone in law enforcement is asking you to adjust the image. That's why the process starts?
Yes, is to enhance.
Okay.
Yes.
So it isn't a situation where it's given to you and you are determining whether or not there is something about this footage that is wrong or problematic. The way that it comes to your attention is needing your work is because law enforcement has asked you to do something to the image. Is that right?
Yes, because they are able to clarify or see or specify an object or person or
That they want to see.
Yes.
Okay. And so they're asking you to make evident, to make visible what it is that they want you to show them, right?
Yes, based on descriptive information or timestamps provided by that requester. Yes.
Okay. When that kind of a request comes in, do you ask them questions along the lines of who took the image, under what context was the image taken? Do you ask any kinds of questions like that?
We mainly ask how is the media obtained, and then also go into specifics as far as descriptions, again, timestamps, when that person, vehicle, or object comes into view of the camera.
Did you receive such a request in this case?
Yes,
Do you have a copy of that request?
not with me, it's in my case file, but yes, it is here.
Okay. In a moment, we'll be requesting that that be produced.
Well, here's the thing. Let's not request it in a moment. Does she have it? Can you give it to him? So if he wants to ask questions about it for determination of this hearing, it can be done now.
May she step down, Your Honor, and
Yes.
entertain it?
Thank you.
May I take a look? Right, you can.
All right, and I just want to remind everybody, this is a Delbert hearing. It's not cross-examination. So let's get to the expertise, and if there are objections to her expertise in whatever field that she is here for, let's get to that.
Yes, Your Honor. What I'm inquiring into now are the three prongs of Kelly.
Let's get to it.
Yes.
All right, Council, you may proceed with your question.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm just reading the document she tendered to me.
All right, you can have a seat, Council.
We've walked off with three different sets of court orders stickers. I'd like to
Here, I'm going.
make you-
All right, Cindy, do you have some stickers for them?
We do, Your Honor. I mean, I'm sorry, we just. Thank you. As far as, well, but for these, like, out the presence, I think this is 2, right? I'm gonna mark this as 2R. Your Honor, for the purposes of the hearing, I would move to admit 2R.
No objection.
All right, 2 are admitted for purposes of this hearing.
All right, I'm gonna hand this back to you. So in that request, there isn't a date on that request. Could you tell us when that was submitted to you?
It's on the back,
Oh, I'm sorry. That would help.
no problem, June 21st, 2024.
June 21st of 2024. Okay. And when you, and the request that you have in front of you requested you to focus specifically on certain timestamps related to focusing on the black Kia, right?
Yeah, so this specific request included, the vehicle, black Kia, and also its, occupants as well.
Okay. And so,
Your Honor, I'm just gonna object at this time because, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
This doesn't seem like it's related to her expertise in this
All
field.
right, that's sustained. Can we get to her level of expertise, what she is planning on testify that requires her proposed level of expertise? And I will make a ruling on whether or not she's an expert in this field, whether or not this is scientifically accepted. Can we get to that point? This is not for everyone to cross-examine her now. This is a focused hearing, and that focused hearing is whether or not she should be allowed to testify as an expert. And it appears from the court that the expertise she's being offered in is in some sort of video enhancement. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, so if we could get to those points, the court would appreciate it.
I think that's a separate issue. We're gonna write that afterwards. So, all right, let me just real quick, make sure that I walk through this like this. You stated that your background in education prior to your employment was not in any kind of photographic field, correct? You received on-the-job training for the last 2 years in video enhancement.
Correct.
And that was done under this law enforcement and emergency services entity that you described, which is an incorporated private entity, right?
I'm not sure about private, but yes.
And you indicated that they don't have any oversight organization that addresses or reviews their standards, that they are self-regulated.
I'm unsure.
Okay. And with respect to the scientific principles that you rely upon in order to bring about these enhanced processes, what are they? What are the principles that you are using? Fine, like what scientifically is going on in terms of the physics of it? We're talking about light and how light registers with the human eye when we look at it on a computer screen. What about that discipline is underlying the work you do that confirms that it's valid?
I'm unsure how to answer that question.
Okay. Do you not know what scientific principles underline the work you did on this case?
Are you asking me about a specific filter that I use that it relates to?
Well, I mean,
Yes, or-
I don't know exactly what it is you did to the video, so maybe we could start there, and then I'd like to ask you, what principles lead you to believe that that's not misleading? What methods do you use to make sure that those principles are being applied correctly? And what did you do specifically in this case, and was that in keeping with those standards? That's what I want to know.
If I'm understanding your questions clearly, so it's a restorative practice. So these guidelines that I'm following, fall under, already, scientific methods that were proven to, enhance or clarify images or video.
What methods?
There are references. I don't have a handbook on these.
Well, I mean, what
Yeah,
references do you know of that are applicable here?
I can refer to my verification report. I don't mentally know specific methods, scientific methods. I can tell you the filters or processes that I used and how they were applied to the video and how it was, how the pixels were, how can I say this? I can, for example, sharpening, cropping, resizing, magnifications. I can explain to you how those filters are used.
Did you
And how
use
they work.
those filters in this case?
I did, yes.
Okay, then yes, please explain how do those things work?
So for example, when you annotate or magnify, that magnification, uses different interpolations to, calculate those pre-existing pixels, in order to make that image larger. Specific interpolations are nearest bilinear or cubic, as well as sharpening. Sharpening emphasizes the edge details, of the higher frequencies of images in order to define those edges. Cropping, takes out parts of the video or image that would otherwise be distracting. So if you have like the vehicle was in the lower left area of the corner, all the other, I don't know, higher parts were cropped down, to that specific vehicle only. Lighting contrast adjustments, there's a color path, white balance would help reduce that.
So just so we're clear, all of the things you just described are settings and options that anyone with Photoshop can access, right?
These features should be, to my knowledge, are available in Photoshop. Yes, you can crop and resize, you cannot magnify, it could be wrong in Photoshop. But yes, these same features are available in that software.
Okay, and so they're proprietary to the particular piece of software that has these features. So I mean, Photoshop's one program that may do that. I'm sure there are hundreds of others that offer some variety of magnification, cropping, sharpness, contrast enhancement, white balance, alteration, all those different things, right?
Yes,
Like those are just standard photo editing tools that hundreds of different companies manufacture versions of, right?
sure.
And so which software do you use?
I use AMP5.
AMP5. Okay, tell me about AMP5.
It's a scientific based and forensically sound software used for video image processing.
When you say it's scientifically based and forensically sound, do you know anything about how AMP5 was developed or what stands it apart from, say, if I went over and bought a license for Photoshop?
So aside from Photoshop, the processes in AMP5 can be repeated, they can be reproduced, and they can be verified.
So can Photoshop, right?
Does Photoshop print out a verification report for each filter or process used? Do they have references for a specific filter?
Well, I mean, aren't you just describing metadata?
AMP5 does not have a verification report after a image has been.
Well, I mean, other than calling it a verification report, what's different from that and clicking properties on a Photoshopped image?
Because it includes all the specific metadata, file input, processes, who used, who has practiced, who has
So all the
done
same
a
things.
scientific, hypothesis and proven that these processes have worked.
Okay, so do you have that material, that verification report for this enhancement?
It was submitted as a final, it was submitted as a final exhibit to Sergeant Rodriguez.
Do you, have you reviewed it in preparation of your testimony?
I have reviewed it, not in its entirety.
Yeah. When was this produced?
Huh?
When was this produced to us, do you know?
Yeah.
All right, so here's the court's question. The document that is being handed to the defense, number one, what is that document? And number two, is that in any way related to whether or not what her expertise that she's being offered as, and I'm assuming again that the expertise is video enhancement. Does that have anything to do with whether or not the video enhancement that, from what I'm hearing from the testimony, she operated on a DVD? Does that document have anything to do with this hearing on whether or not she's an expert in this field and whether or not this is a scientifically accepted enhancement?
Don't believe so, Honor.
Does it have anything to do with that?
I'm not sure I've ever seen this.
Actually, it was sent over October 17, 2024. An email was sent to you. Additional evidence in this case has been copied to a disk at your convenience, will be placed at the fourth floor window. That
All right,
was
so
sent-
any other questions for this witness for this hearing? Because this is not a time for cross-examination. This is strictly whether or not she's an expert in video enhancement and whether or not video enhancement has been scientifically accepted. Any more questions regards to that?
Well, Your Honor, I think that we have established that the three prongs of Daubert-Kelly have not been met, but I also, given that one of the things that she stated is that this forensic video report is the reason that the software that she uses would meet the standards of Daubert-Kelly, I would like to cross-examine her slightly about the contents of the report because I'm not
All
seeing.
right, so when was defense given this report?
It was made available to them on October 17, 2024.
All right, so that's been made available to since October 2024. Ask the questions.
Your Honor, I'm not ready to stipulate to that yet because I'm not familiar with it. So while I'm sure that Mr. Garahan advises something that he believes to be true, I'd like to verify that against what we've received. We've been trying to
All
keep
right,
very
could
careful.
one of the councils look and see if you all received that in October 2024?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Could one of the councils at the table look and see if that documentation has been in your possession since October 2024?
It will take us it'll take us a few minutes to confirm that, Your Honor. There's been a lot of production since October of 24.
All right, so just so everyone know, we're going to continue with this witness and we will be here until this witness is concluded. Then at that point, that's when we will take our recess.
Your Honor, may I ask before the jury is brought back in?
Oh, no, the jury's not going to be brought back in right now. I'm going to let defense ask whatever other questions the defense wants to ask of this
And if I
witness.
may
Yes.
make a request.
And then after he finishes asking all of the questions he wants to ask as it relates to a Delaware hearing, the court will make its ruling, and then the jurors will be brought back in.
If I may ask for an instruction before they are, depending on what the court rules.
An instruction on what?
This has nothing to do with this. Assuming that she is brought here solely for the purpose of video enhancement, which I believe the court has said several times. I would like a Dexter versus state instruction that the word organized crime just happens to be the name of her company, and that it is not intended to imply anything to do.
All right,
with
if there's
organized
no
crime.
objection from the state, if she is allowed to testify, I will give an instruction that the title of her company is in no way to suggest that this case is something concerning organized crime. Any objections from the state?
No objection, Your Honor.
I guess,
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, to help move this along, I mean, Mr. Garahan has established that.
Oh, just ask your questions, counsel. We're going to move it along through question and answer. So go ahead and ask your questions. Tell the jurors just to wait. Counsel, you can have a seat, ask your question.
Yes, Your Honor. My point in addressing the court with that was just simply to say that my questions further will hinge somewhat a little bit more on what specifically they are trying to elicit from.
No. Here's the thing. We're having a Daubert hearing. There's a proffer that was made, and the state stated that they were offering her in the expertise of video enhancement. So counsel, you may continue to ask your questions of the witness as long as it relates to her expertise.
Your Honor, I believe under Rule 705, part of the hearing entitles us to know the specific conclusions of the witness's opinion and the underlying facts and data that support them.
My understanding is that the report that you received that the state said that you've had since 2024, that's what's in the report. And the state has already stated what they're offering, the purpose of her testimony. So please continue with your questions. You can ask as many questions as you want to ask of the witness. You may proceed.
Ma'am, if you could just briefly explain what opinions you intend to give to this jury today.
I don't provide opinions. I'm not an analyst, I'm a technician.
So what are you going to say to this jury specifically about the work that you did?
Depends on what you ask. I don't know what I'm going to say. Sorry.
Your Honor, I think I've established this, and I'd like to mark this as well as defendants R3 and have this admitted as well for the purposes of this record. We will check our discovery production records and confirm whether we've received it. I move at this time to have it admitted.
I don't object, Your Honor, but that was my copy, but I could get another copy. I just don't have a paper copy.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I don't think I marked it except for the front with the highlight.
And I'm okay with your highlight. I
All
don't
right.
think it telegraphs anything of great
Well,
significance.
if you would, then if the state will need to make a copy of that, your exhibit number, if you'll put it on the back,
Well,
on
Judge,
the last page.
I can probably make a copy.
Okay.
I can make a copy. I can
All right.
obtain one.
All right, proceed.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you what we've marked for the purposes of the hearing as defendants R3. This is the report that you indicated was produced.
Yes.
And you're saying that this report is produced by the program?
No, this is a comprehensive forensic report that was written by me.
You authored this report?
Yes.
Okay. So when we were talking about what the information that the program can produce, program doesn't write this.
No, so we have a forensic video report, and then there's also a verification report that directly comes from M5 that lays out specifically details and references as it relates to that last page, the procedures. So again, this is a comprehensive forensic report that was written by me. It lays out my procedures and processes, the filters that were used. In addition to that verification report directly from the software.
Nothing in this document was made by the software, right?
No.
You wrote everything that's in this document.
I did.
Okay. And so much of the document consists of just showing the file names that are associated with these videos.
Yes, it includes the reason for the examination. It has a chain of custody as well. In addition to the media information, it has multiple pages of each file that was provided by Sergeant Rodriguez, laying out that file information, the metadata. And then in the back of that, the conclusion is the procedure, what was done, the software used, the filters, why more enhancements could not be done, and how those enhancements were exported and provided to that chapter.
So in terms of computer language, nothing in here shows us the actual commands that the computer executed when you decided, for example, to make the image sharper. There's nothing in here that another expert wanting to critique your work would be able to say, she moved the slider over this many degrees to the right because here's the hash value for that in this printout of what the computer actually executed, right? That's not in this report.
In that report, no, that is in the verification report, that was also provided.
So there's another report in addition to this one.
It is,
Okay. Was that also produced in October of 2024?
it was.
Okay. Mr. Garahan, we'd also like to see that.
Judge, may I approach up there?
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Want to see the exhibit?
No, I want to be able to show the witness.
Have that. Yes, that is.
That is it.
That is.
Okay, Judge, it is 106 pages, Judge. Sure. So we will print it out.
When on the final page, or I guess on the final 2 pages of this report, pages 25 and 26 of defendants R3, you said that you describe in plain language the procedures that you employed, right?
Yes,
So you, for example, say that they were imported into AMP5 and you give the specific version of the software you're using, right?
correct,
And then you list the techniques. You use the unroll tool
yes,
to convert the camera's fisheye lens to a standard panoramic video.
yes,
It was then flipped horizontally and vertically for easier viewing.
Yes.
Aspect ratio was calibrated based on a near perfect circle of the vehicle's tire, right?
yes,
And that's, I guess, the vehicle's tire as measured on the camera, not actually knowing the diameter of the vehicle's tire and scaling.
correct.
Okay. As far as the El Potosino videos are concerned, the parking lot videos, you indicated that you enlarged the image, right?
I would have to read it. I know the El Casino cameras were DVR screen recorded due to them coming from a proprietary player.
I see. So, and that fact that they were DVR screen recorded, that limits the amount of information that you have to adjust, right?
So that proprietary player did not include an export function. So therefore, and it also would not convert the associated files. So the last rework was to screen capture the proprietary player using the DVR screen capture function.
But that does limit the amount of information that you have to work with, right?
They aren't designed, proprietary players aren't designed, they vary greatly in functionality. So no, sir, they are not allowed, sorry. They aren't meant for forensic analysis and they can limit the process.
So for example, you note here that lossy compression, which is part of the process you used on the Potosino parking lot camera, lossy compression discards important information which cannot be restored, right?
Correct, but I did not use lossy compression.
More enhancements were not possible due to insufficient pixel detail, distance, and compression of the videos. Are you sure you didn't use lossy compression?
that states more enhancements were not possible due to faulty compression, insufficient pixel detail. So the DVR screen capture was done in a lossless manner. That is where all information is retained and no information is lost. I'm saying that more enhancements could not be done due to faulty compression, which discards important information in order to save file space, storage space.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is the way that's written makes it sound like because of the process that was put upon it, you couldn't get additional information out of the image. Is that right?
Yes, prior to my enhancements, these videos, I can't create new information. I can only work with information that is there. So prior to me restoring or enhancing these videos, those videos were already compressed. Compression is a common process in video.
Okay, so. Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, when that's printed, we would like to have that entered in for the record, but I think for the purposes of our objection, I'm ready to make the full objection.
Oh, do you have any more questions for the witness?
Redirect from the state.
Do you have any more questions of the witness?
I'm passing the witness.
All right, any questions, state?
Congressman.
All right, brief argument.
Your Honor, it doesn't meet Delbert Kelly or 702. The witness is accredited under an entity which is a standalone private entity. It's not a governmental one. She is not aware of any oversight entities that it is affiliated with that accredit it or engage in peer review of its published literature. There's been no testimony that establishes that the software that's used by this particular company is any different in the way that it operates than just what any individual of the general public would be able to use. She's unable to identify any specific scientific methods that are not methods, but scientific principles that are at issue in the way that her work is conducted. She's not able to identify the way in which what she uses with this software is correctly applying those scientific principles. And she's not able to attest that any specific methodology that she hasn't identified was applied correctly on the occasion in question. Those are all three prongs of the Daubert-Kelly test. And we have to be very careful here because what we're talking about is something that fundamentally does alter the actual pixels of a still or moving image, which is a matter of subjective judgment, both by the operator and by the program that was written by someone unaffiliated with this organization as to how much change to give at any particular moment in time. So I think that under Daubert-Kelly, it would have a tendency to confuse and mislead the jury. It is invalid scientific evidence, and that this testimony should be excluded.
Any response, state?
Yes, Your Honor, the state's position is it does fit the underlying scientific theory. It is valid that it is a field, and it does take the applying of the this technique is valid, and it's been properly applied in this case because she's obviously stated that this does not change the image. She doesn't add nor take away. It's just an enhanced version of this image, and the underlying.
What is that noise?
What's that?
There's a noise.
Probably has to do with the final four, Your Honor.
Does somebody hear that?
No. What?
Okay, all right.
I just
You may
don't.
continue.
Okay, sorry. And in this particular thing, she is trained, she's spoken about her background, her education, and then also her training. She has over 176 hours in the field and 124 related specifically to video. And then she also has worked on over 260 cases. So due to this experience, she should be certified as a video enhancement expert.
All I would say, Judge, is I still have not heard what the scientific theory applicable is. And I still have not heard what exactly her field is encompassed by. I think that what we're talking about here is someone who I'm sure is very skilled in using digital photo and video editing software. And I don't doubt that she knows how to use that equipment. I'm just saying there's no way that you can adjust an image with those kinds of software without changing it. And that she would not be the person who would ever know whether the changes that she's making are destroying, altering, or adding data to the image that was not previously there or that cannot ever be recovered. She can't know that because she's not the person who designed the programs that make these changes. She can say that she did them and that she did them the way that she was trained. And we're not saying that there's anything improper about her decision making. We're just saying it's a subjective discipline that isn't not scientific, and that it is driven by a law enforcement request. It isn't as though a scientist is saying, ooh, this image is problematic in some objective way that relates to the way in which the image cell operated or the film was exposed. We're saying that the reason why this process must be put upon it is because a policeman or a prosecutor asked it to be done.
All right, thank you.
And Your Honor, if we may, two things. One, this is the problem with AI, with how she receives this. Maybe someday we will all be able to say this works, but I don't think there's a proper foundation for that in this case, and we could spend weeks here litigating whether the AI is meaningful, appropriate. All we know is the name of the AI. And if we were going to go through lunch with the witness, may I let my wife know who's waiting downstairs?
Yes.
And let Father Rufus and Lexi and Eddie from my office
Yes,
go to St. Mary's, and I will remain here with them.
thank you. All right, the court is going to find that the witness is an expert in the field of video enhancement based upon the training, the certification, and the work in the field. You can bring the jurors in.
All rise for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this witness, I believe, gave her organization name, and I believe the words organized crime was in some shape or form mentioned in the name. What I want to instruct you on is the fact that those words, organized crime, has absolutely nothing to do with this offense. There's been no allegations that the alleged offense is any type of organized crime. Does everyone understand? It's just the title of a company, but you are not to take any meaning to the words organized crime. Does everyone understand? All right, States, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. And I think we were at, well, one, can I just reference you as Kay?
Yes.
Okay, today is the first day I actually met you in person, is that right? Okay. And can you, I think you've already stated the organization, and the judge just referenced it just now. But can you just briefly tell the jury about your background as in education?
Education background?
Yes, yes.
Sure. I have a criminal justice administration degree from Middle Tennessee State University, as well as a psychology minor.
And can you also speak to your training that's associated with your current position?
Yes, so I have undergone Legal 1 and Legal 2. They are certified in training and providing certifications for forensic video analysts as well as technicians. Must conduct forensic imaging for at least 1 year in order to go to that level 2 training. After you finish level 2 and have completed at least a year conducting forensic imaging, you are allowed a certification. Under that certification, you are to uphold a code of ethics and conducts in order to maintain
Objection, relevance, and narrative.
Overruled with regards to relevance, with regards to narrative sustained.
Well, thank you for explaining that. I appreciate that. But you have some extensive training in that field then.
Yes.
And speaking of that, can you specifically speak about your what you do for, and I think the acronym is ROCIC?
Yes.
can you explain to the jury briefly of what you do for that?
Yes, so I am employed with ROCIC. My position is a forensic, video analyst, or technician, sorry, or audio video specialist. This includes, processing image recordings, as well as conducting video forensic analysis. In other words, to improve the images in order to clarify any objects or scenes or persons, as well as being able to understand the intelligibility or the listenability of recorded material.
Thank you. And did you go through certain training? How many hours would you have to go through training to qualify for this position?
So I've been doing the audio video forensics for almost 2 years in July. I've been certified under LEGA for maybe 6 months now.
And so let's go to, in this particular case, were you contacted to perform an enhancement on some videos associated with this case?
Yes.
And tell me, what is a video?
A video, simply put, is an electronic representation of images. These images can be moving or stationary. This can also include audio.
And let me ask you this, particularly to this case, was there any audio involved?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Now let me ask you, just specifically, for instance, like what is like sharpening of a video?
Yes, so sharpening is to emphasize the high frequencies of edge details in a image or video. It basically clarifies or enhances the fine details that you aren't able to see at the scene as opposed to seeing at a camera.
And can you explain to the jury codecs versus containers?
Yes, so a codec is used to compress or decompress, encode or decode. An example would be H.264, H.265. A container is basically a wrapper. It's a structural layer. This container can include the audio information, include the video streams. It can include timestamp information, caption information. Basically tells that video how to be played.
And can you explain what a frame rate is?
Yes, so a frame rate is the videos, it's a measurement of the video's display rate in frames per second.
And can you explain or describe rather resolution, what resolution means?
Yes, so a video or image's resolution, it relates to the pixel dimensions that make up that image or video. It's generally expressed as the pixels captured horizontally or vertically.
And what about pixels? Can you describe to the jury what pixels are?
Yes, so a pixel is a picture element. It is the smallest unit that can be processed individually. 1 pixel can make up an entire resolution.
Thank you for explaining that to us. And can I ask you this specifically to this case, were you requested to perform your analyst of videos in this case?
Yes, we were contacted for video enhancements.
And can you describe that process of how you go about receiving and then analyzing videos?
Yes, so there is a policy and procedure in place that we are to follow. Once a request comes in, it is assigned as a video or audio case. Upon receipt of that request, we are to contact the officer within 24 hours. This contact includes an introduction, the nature of the request, the transfer of media, how they want to get those files over to us, whether by mail or electronically or in person. From there, a forensic copy is made. We do not work on that original copy or original file that the officer gives us. Once that copy has been made, we hash that folder or file. A hash is a forensic digital fingerprint that enables us to ensure and prove that that media has not been altered or changed once we receive it. And from there, we follow a forensic imaging process and framework. This includes the file preparation, for filling out that chain of custody, and analysis, visual analysis, basically trying to figure out what is wrong, restoration and enhancement. From there, we do file output, export the clarified images. We write a forensic processing comprehensive report. A verification report is provided as well. And we basically detail how our processes and filters are applied to that request. And we export and send that media to the officer, whether by USB or electronically.
Thank you.
And I'm so sorry, Your Honor, but may we approach just very briefly?
Yes.
It's sort of like.
All right, State, you may proceed.
Sorry, Judge, I'm just trying to, I guess let me ask you this question. Is there certain software or tools that you use to compile this or do this analysis and stuff?
Yes, so for this specific request, the software account 5 was used.
Okay, thank you.
Let me approach and show you what's been marked state exhibit number 40 and 62. And I just want to ask you, are you familiar with these, these discs?
I am.
And do you, one, were these originals that were sent to you to be analyzed?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, counsel, what exhibits were those?
Exhibit number 40, state's exhibit number 40, which was the Chick-fil-A, what we'll call the Chick-fil-A videos. And then state exhibit number 62, which is the Al Montesino restaurant videos, we'll call that.
And at this time,
I'm going to show you what's been marked state exhibit number 63. And also state exhibit number 64. Do you recognize those CDs?
I do.
And what do you recognize each of these to be?
Those are the folder names or file names, that were used for enhancements.
And beginning with state exhibit number 63 in particular, what does that disk contain?
As far as,
Well, the file name.
so this is the, if I'm not mistaken, the 360 fisheye camera specifically, that was used for enhancements for the files.
And then also state exhibit number 64, what is contained on there?
That is a El Montesino proprietary player, that includes files used for enhancements.
And these are enhancements that you performed and sent to us. Judge, at this time, state would offer state exhibit number 63 and 64 for the purposes.
Your Honor, we would object under 702, 703, 705, the Delbert Kelly principles, Sixth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and also Article 3914 in the Heath opinion.
All right, those objections are overruled. States exhibits 63 and 64 admitted.
and they republish,
Yes.
and just to ask you about state exhibit number 63. Can you explain to the jury what we're looking at and what you did to enhance this video?
Sure, so this was a 360 fisheye camera. What you are looking at is an unrolled and flipped version of that 360 fisheye for easier viewing. This is a magnification of the scene that Sergeant Rodriguez specifically requests to be directed to and focused on. Due to the distance, this was magnified for easier viewing. That larger box is a direct focus into that smaller box. And it has been again magnified.
And I see that one, it looks a little, I guess, lack of, expertise in this field. It looks a little grainy. Can you explain to the jury why it looks like that?
Sure, so the way the process, the camera is able to record that information. The grainy feature that you see is basically compression and or compression artifacts that arise from that specific device.
So when you clarify this image or this video, are you changing the image? Are you manipulating the image into something
I'm
different?
going to object to leading, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer the.
So yes, so the purpose of enhancement is to restore and enhance. So yes, there are changes made. It is not the same image that was provided to me by Sergeant Rodriguez. The output image is going to be different, but it is not to be misleading or misrepresent the image content. It's to reveal pre-existing information.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the bolstering of the testimony. I mean, I think that that kind of a self-serving statement is inherently not an acceptable line of inquiry for the prosecutor to go into. I guess that would be a Fifth and Sixth Amendment objection.
All right, that will be overruled.
Were you, you were finished with the answer, is that correct? Okay. At this time, we'll go ahead and play the video. Next video. Open up Pavilion North 3. Got that folder. And did you do anything to this image or this video?
Could you clarify the following?
No, I can't. Let me withdraw the question. Because I can't see it. Can you exit out of there and go to the next one? There you go. Okay, we can go back. Now, in that image, it seemed like a image from the previous one, but just what was done to that one?
So this is what I'm looking for, I'm sorry. So I named my filters or processes to replicate what I use for that specific video. So for this example, the blue highlighted file is nearest. Levels, TDBLR stands for turbulence to blurring, and UM stands for unsharp masking. So this is a cropped version of that full video that you see beside it. It has been, since it was cropped, it was resized to a nearest interpolation. TD blur removes or reduces blurring of that vehicle. And then it was also sharpened again to emphasize the high frequencies or edge details of that vehicle.
Thank you. And this video is somewhat a little bit different from the previous videos. Can you describe what that, I think they call it a fish bowl or fish eye? What is that?
Yes, so the Padawan's cameras 1 and 2 was a fisheye camera, sorry. So a fisheye or the 360 view is just a full circular viewing of a scene.
And then the camera that we just saw, that we just witnessed, what type of, was that a fisheye camera also?
No, that's not a fisheye.
Thank you. Now, we're gonna go ahead and go into oh. Okay, state exhibit number 63. And please tell us, and the reason, just Judge, just to make the record clear, we're using it from the hard drive and not from the actual disks that have been entered into evidence, and that's why I got confused. And so now we are on state exhibit number 64.
But nothing from the hard drive was played that hasn't been admitted, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I'll show you what's been marked state exhibit 65, 66, 67, and 68. Can you please just look through those and tell me if you recognize them?
Yes, these are recognized. I would like to note that these are not a direct depiction of the clarified images, these are printouts and not based on light or luminance as a digital recorder would be. But yes, they are similar. Yes,
As in, they're printed from a digital form that you created.
yes.
Okay, thank you. At this time, the state would offer state exhibit number 65 through 68. Thanks.
Your same objection, 702, 703, 705, 3914, Heath, Robert Kelly, Fifth and Sixth Amendment, and specifically to these offered exhibits 65 through 68. The witness just testified that they do not fairly and accurately depict the same thing that her work provided. So foundation on top of those other objections.
See, state exhibit 65, 66, 67, and 68.
And I guess I should add 403 for tendency to confuse and mislead.
All right, the objection will be sustained as to foundation.
Let me just ask you, for the exhibits that were not entered just now, are those seen on the videos that were presented already?
Yes, so those are sequenced images that were, yes, came from my enhancements. But again, since they are used or printed out and used for ink, that color discrepancy is there.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness, John.
Right, defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Very briefly. Just to be clear, you talked a lot about things like compression artifacts and things of that nature. You recall that testimony? And so what we're talking about there are things that are different about the image because of the way the computer is storing and regurgitating the information, right? And so those are qualitatively different things about the finished product that have been changed from how it was when the light hit that photo sensor on a digital camera or hit the film on an analog camera, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we talked about this at length earlier, but just to go back into it for a second, what you are doing is very similar to what people would do with, say, for example, Photoshop or over-the-counter photographic editing software, right?
I would not wholly disagree, really. There's a forensic line, again, between Photoshop and creating something that's appealing to the eye rather than.
Well, and I'm not asking you about the what can be done with that software. I'm just asking you, that's what this software does, is basically the same thing that Photoshop does. What the user inputs is obviously a part of it, and that's where you draw the line, right?
There are similar features, yes.
Okay. And as far as that line between what's aesthetically pleasing to the human eye and what's forensically viable, you can't identify a specific singular thing that draws that line for this jury so that they understand it, correct?
I think the images and videos based on when you question reliability of a video image, yes. In order to prove facts as opposed to subjective opinions based on what someone interprets or believes that video to be.
Okay, but how much sharpness increase, how much contrast adjustment, how much white balance adjustment that you make is based upon the request that was put to you by law enforcement, right?
Could you clarify?
Well, you testified earlier that the way that this process starts is that you are given a specific request to emphasize certain aspects of a photograph or video image based upon what law enforcement asks you to focus on, correct?
Could I clarify details that are not exposed to the human eye, because of that specific device, based off the defaults or, defects, I should say.
Well, but let's just be more particular about it. In this case, you received a request asking you to specifically focus on a black Kia at certain timestamps in certain videos, correct? That was a request made by law enforcement, right?
It was.
And so when you come into it, you aren't looking at it objectively and saying, oh, there's a problem with this image. It's not digestible to the human eye objectively. You're coming at it and saying, oh, police don't like this image because it doesn't show what they want it to show. They're asking you to make that manifest, right?
Could I clarify in order for them to, further or enhance their investigation? Yes, that is what I do.
Understood. Pass the witness.
Any questions?
One question. Did law enforcement ask you to make the image as clear as possible? And also to make it look like Tamor McIntyre?
No.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
No further questions.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excused by the state.
Excused.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone. The only, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to discuss your testimony in regards to this case while the case is proceeding. You understand?
Yes.
All right, but if either the defense or the state wish to speak to you, they are allowed to speak to you and you're allowed to speak to them. All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess at this time. And can I have counsel approach for a moment?
Thank you.
All right, everyone, please be seated. So we'll be, I'm having the juror come back at 2
I'm
counsel.
gonna try.
But if you, no, here's the thing, don't rush. If you're not back till 2:15, we'll just wait for you, okay?
I'll leave my, thank you.
Yes, you can leave your items. You're welcome. All right, thank you.
Your Honor, just real quick, if we could have the court reporter take down that I'm going to offer defense R4, which is that front out
Sure.
stuff that we talked with the witness.